Welcome to part one of the Ancient Civilizations Iceberg, where we explore civilizations and societies from the well known to the extremely obscure, from how they rose to how they fell. This iceberg series will be focusing on lesser known ancient civilizations, and as such, the most well known ancient civilizations, such as Rome, Greece, and China, will not be directly discussed. That said, if you want to hear about better known ancient civilizations, they will be mentioned frequently throughout this series in relation to the lesser known civilization. If you're unfamiliar with this format, we'll be starting with the more well known of the lesser known civilizations, and then progressively getting more obscure as we delve into the depths. Also, remember to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. The Etruscans. The Etruscan civilization, flourishing from around 900 BC to its ultimate demise in 27 BC, was one of the major cultures in ancient Italy, predating and significantly influencing the Roman Empire. The origins of the Etruscans are somewhat debated among scholars. Some theories suggest they migrated from Asia Minor or were related to the Phoenicians, while others argue they were an indigenous population of Italy. The consensus leans towards the latter, with evidence showing that the Etruscans evolved from the Villanovan culture in the early Iron Age around 900 BC. The Etruscans established a complex society with a network of city-states across what is now Tuscany, western Umbria, and northern Lazio. These city-states formed a loose confederation known as the Etruscan League, which would reach the zenith of its power and territory around 700 BC before beginning a long decline. At its height, Etruscan territory extended into the Po Valley and included areas of northern Italy and parts of the Adriatic coast. Etruscan society was highly stratified, with a distinct class system that included an aristocracy, common citizens, and slaves. Women in Etruscan society enjoyed relatively higher status compared to their Greek and Roman counterparts. They could own property, partake in banquets, and were depicted in various art forms alongside men, indicating their significant social roles. Religion played a crucial role in Etruscan life, and many of the old Etruscan gods would be integrated into the Roman pantheon later on. Some of the most significant gods to make this migration were Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, who represented a fusion of Etruscan, native Roman, and Greek religious beliefs and ideas. Etruscan priests practiced divination and were believed to possess the ability to predict the future by reading animal entrails and interpreting natural phenomena such as the flight patterns and behavior of birds. Notably, these religious and ritualistic concepts were adapted by the Romans later on as well. The Etruscans were known for their skills in metallurgy and trade. They exploited the rich mineral resources of Tuscany, particularly iron and copper, which they traded extensively across the Mediterranean. Their strategic position and alliances, such as with the Carthaginians, helped them dominate maritime trade routes. Militarily, the Etruscans were initially strong, defending their territories against various adversaries, including the Greeks and Celts. However, the Etruscans were powerless to stop significant inflows of Greek settlers into the Italian peninsula and Sicily. These Greek settlers in Italy and Sicily formed an outcropping of Greek civilization known contemporaneously and presently as Magna Graecia. The power of the Etruscans began to wane after several significant defeats. These defeats culminated in the Battle of Cumae in 474 BC, which saw the Etruscans defeated by a coalition of Greeks from southern Italy and Sicily. This loss weakened their naval power and cut off vital trade routes. Further, the rise of Rome posed a significant threat to Etruscan hegemony. Rome's expansionist policies led to continuous conflicts with the Etruscan city-states. One of the pivotal moments was the fall of the city of Veii to Rome in 396 BC after a lengthy siege. This victory demonstrated Rome's growing military prowess and marked the beginning of the end for Etruscan independence. In addition to military defeats, the Etruscans faced economic hardships brought on by their loss of hegemony. The decline in trade and frequent conflicts drained their resources. By the late 4th century BC, the Celtic invasions further destabilized the northern regions, and the loss of the Po Valley cut off another crucial economic area. The final blow came with the Roman conquests in the 3rd century BC. Rome systematically annexed Etruscan territories, and by 27 BC, with the establishment of the Roman Empire, the remaining Etruscan cities were fully integrated into Roman administration. Etruscan culture and language gradually disappeared, assimilated into the broader Roman and Italic world. Despite their downfall, the Etruscans left a lasting legacy, a legacy which is outsized due to their significant influence on Roman civilization. Their contributions to Roman culture were substantial, including religious practices, architectural innovations such as the arch, and social customs like the gladiatorial games. Roman urban planning, art, and even their pantheon were also deeply influenced by Etruscan tradition. The Minoan civilization, flourishing on the island of Crete from approximately 3000 BC to 1000 BC, is regarded as one of the earliest advanced societies in Europe. This civilization, named after the mythical king Minos, made significant contributions to art, architecture, and trade in the ancient world, and left its mark on future Greek civilization. Notably, while the Minoans are often imagined or portrayed as having a unified state with a monarchy, likely due to the popularity of the King Minos legend, the actual structure of the society is unknown. None of the various artworks found on Crete unambiguously depict someone in a role approximating kingship or rulership. The origins of the Minoan civilization trace back to the early Neolithic inhabitants of Crete, around 7000 BC, who established farming communities. By 3100 BC, during the early Minoan period, the society began to exhibit characteristics of an advanced culture, with developments in ceramics and metallurgy. The early Minoans lived in small villages that gradually grew into larger, more complex urban centers. The civilization reached its zenith during the Middle and Late Minoan periods, roughly between 2000 and 1450 BC. The Minoans built large, elaborate palaces, the most famous being Knossos, Phaistos, and Melia. These palaces were not only royal residences but also centers of economic and religious activity. The architectural sophistication of the Minoans is evident in their use of multi-story buildings, advanced plumbing systems, and vibrant frescoes depicting religious ceremonies, nature, and everyday life. Trade played a crucial role in the prosperity of the Minoan civilization. Their strategic position in the Mediterranean facilitated extensive trade networks with Egypt, the Near East, and the Aegean Islands. The Minoans exported goods such as olive oil, wine, and pottery, while importing precious materials like copper and tin, which were essential for their bronze production. The decline of the Minoan civilization began around 1450 BC, marked by the destruction of many palatial centers. The exact cause of this downfall remains a topic of debate among historians and archaeologists. Several factors likely contributed to the civilization's collapse. Around 1600 BC, a massive volcanic eruption on the nearby island of Thera, modern-day Santorini, is believed to have had devastating effects on Minoan society. The eruption likely caused significant environmental disruption, including tsunamis, ashfall, and climatic changes, which would have severely impacted agriculture and trade. Further archaeological evidence shows that many Minoan sites, including palaces, were destroyed by earthquakes. These natural disasters would have weakened the infrastructure and stability of the civilization, making it vulnerable to other threats. The rise of the Mycenaean civilization on mainland Greece coincided with the decline of the Minoans. There is evidence that the Mycenaeans took over several Minoan sites, including Knossos, and integrated Minoan elements into their own culture. This suggests that the Mycenaeans may have played a role in the eventual downfall of the Minoan civilization through conquest and assimilation. Notably, however, some modern historians believe this to be less of a hostile takeover and more of a drawn-out merging of cultures over centuries. By 1200 BC, most Minoan sites were abandoned, and the once flourishing civilization faded into history. Today, the Minoan civilization remains primarily known for its connections to Greek mythology, with King Minos, Theseus, Icarus, the Minotaur, and the Labyrinth still famous the world over millennia later. Easter Island, known as Rapa Nui to its indigenous people, is one of the most remote inhabited islands in the world. Located in the southeastern Pacific Ocean, the island is famed for its nearly 900 monumental statues, known as moai, created by the early Rapa Nui people. Easter Island was settled by Polynesians between 700 and 1200 AD, with some estimates suggesting arrival closer to 800 AD. These settlers, navigating thousands of miles of ocean, established a society that would become renowned for its remarkable cultural and architectural achievements. The moai statues, some standing up to 30 feet tall and weighing as much as 82 tons, were erected to honor ancestors and possibly served religious or social functions. These statues were primarily carved from volcanic tuff found in the Rano Raraku quarry and transported across the island, a feat that still puzzles researchers today. The Rapa Nui society was divided into clans, each led by a chieftain. The construction of moai was likely a communal effort, reflecting a high degree of social organization and cooperation. The islanders developed a unique script known as Rongo-Rongo, though its meaning remains largely undeciphered. This script likely represents one of the few known examples of an independent writing system developed in a prehistoric society. The downfall of Easter Island's civilization is often attributed to environmental degradation. As the population grew, the demand for resources increased. Trees were cut down for agriculture, boat building, and moving the moai statues. This extensive deforestation led to soil erosion, reduced crop yields, and the loss of raw materials necessary for daily life and further moai construction. By the time European explorers arrived in the early 18th century, the island was largely deforested, and the society was in decline. Further, in an ironic and sad twist, it is speculated that the Rapa Nui attempted to devote more time to moai construction, the more society declined. Internal conflicts exacerbated the island's struggles, especially given that the island was never known to have been ruled by a single chieftain. Clans engaged in wars, often toppling each other's moai statues in a display of dominance. These conflicts further weakened the society, making it vulnerable to external threats. The first recorded European contact occurred in 1722 when Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen arrived, estimating the population at around 3,000 inhabitants. Further, he noted the society to be fairly healthy at that point. Subsequent visits by Spanish and British explorers in the late 18th century found a dramatically reduced and struggling population. European contact brought devastating consequences. Diseases to which the Rapa Nui had no immunity, such as smallpox, and raids by Peruvian traders in the 1860s decimated the population. The introduction of European livestock and plants further disrupted the local ecosystem. The island was eventually annexed by Chile in 1888, but its residents were not granted Chilean citizenship until 1966. Today, Easter Island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, attracting researchers and tourists alike who are fascinated by its history and cultural heritage. The descendants of the Rapa Nui people continue to live on the island, maintaining their cultural traditions while integrating into the broader Chilean society. The Moai statues, standing as silent sentinels, remain a powerful testament to the ingenuity and resilience of the Rapa Nui. The Carthaginians. The Carthaginian civilization, founded in the 9th century BC by Phoenician settlers from Tyre, became a dominant power in the Mediterranean due to its strategic location and maritime prowess. Carthage, meaning new city in the Phoenician language, grew rapidly as a commercial hub, facilitating trade across the Mediterranean and beyond. According to legend, Queen Dido established Carthage around 814 BC, a date generally accepted by historians. However, the historicity of Queen Dido is not generally accepted amongst modern scholars, and was even questioned by ancient historians. Carthage's early years were marked by significant expansion and the establishment of numerous colonies. Its influence extended to North Africa, parts of Iberia, and various Mediterranean islands, including Sardinia and Sicily. Carthaginian society was heavily influenced by Phoenician culture, evident in their religious practices, art, and urban planning. Religion in Carthage was a continuation of the Phoenician polytheistic traditions, with chief gods such as Baal Hammon and Tanit. The Carthaginians also adopted deities from other cultures, including Greek and Egyptian gods, reflecting their extensive trade networks and cultural interactions. Carthage's military strength was initially based on its powerful navy, which controlled key maritime routes. The city employed a diverse array of mercenaries from various regions, including Iberians, Gauls, Numidians, and Greeks. These mercenaries were crucial in Carthage's numerous military campaigns, particularly during the Punic Wars against Rome. Notably, Carthage is one of the first civilizations to have been documented to be almost completely dependent upon mercenaries. The First Punic War from 264 to 241 BC marked the beginning of a protracted struggle between Carthage and Rome for dominance in the western Mediterranean. Despite initial successes, Carthage ultimately lost Sicily to Rome. The war highlighted Carthage's reliance on mercenary forces and the need for a more effective military strategy. Hamilcar Barca, a prominent Carthaginian general, played a crucial role in the aftermath of the First Punic War. He focused on expanding Carthaginian territories in Iberia, laying the groundwork for future confrontations with Rome. His son, Hannibal, would later become one of Carthage's most famous military leaders, and perhaps one of the most famous generals of all time. Hannibal's campaign during the Second Punic War from 218 to 201 BC is legendary for his daring crossing of the Alps to invade Italy, famously including a contingent of war elephants. Hannibal achieved several significant victories against Roman forces, including the famous Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, where his tactics nearly annihilated a much larger Roman army. Despite these successes, Hannibal was eventually forced to retreat to North Africa, where he was defeated by the equally legendary Roman general Scipio Africanus at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. The defeat at Zama marked a turning point for Carthage, from which it would never recover. The city was forced to cede its territories outside of North Africa and pay a substantial indemnity to Rome. Carthage's political and economic power waned, and it struggled to recover from the war's devastation. The final blow to Carthage came during the Third Punic War from 149 to 146 BC. Rome, determined to eliminate the Carthaginian threat once and for all, launched a brutal campaign against the city. After a lengthy siege, Roman forces breached Carthage's defenses, leading to the city's complete destruction. The surviving Carthaginian population was enslaved, and the city was systematically demolished, marking the end of the Carthaginian civilization. The salting of Carthage, an act following its destruction at the end of the Third Punic War, is a widely circulated but historically debated event. According to legend, Roman soldiers sowed the land with salt to ensure that Carthage could never rise again. However, contemporary historical accounts do not confirm this specific act, and it is likely a later embellishment symbolizing Rome's total eradication of Carthage. Given that Rome integrated the razed city into the Republic, it seems unlikely that they would have completely destroyed the economic output of a land they conquered so completely. Ultimately, Carthaginian civilization faded from history, while Roman civilization would influence the entire Western world, and then the entire world, up to the present day. And on that note, if you're enjoying this video, remember to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for more content like this. The Greco-Bactrian Kingdom, a Hellenistic state, emerged in Central Asia after the region seceded from the Seleucid Empire around 250 BC. This kingdom covered parts of modern Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and extended into Iran, Pakistan, and Kazakhstan. Known for its rich cities and fertile lands, Bactria was referred to as the land of 1,000 cities. The roots of Greek influence in Bactria can be traced back to the Persian Empire, when Greek communities were established under Persian rulers like Darius and Xerxes. This influence solidified after Alexander the Great conquered the region in 328 BC. Following Alexander's death, Bactria became part of the Seleucid Empire until the satrap of Bactria, Diodotus I, declared independence around 250 BC, establishing the Greco-Bactrian Kingdom. Under kings like Diodotus and Euthydemus I, the Greco-Bactrian Kingdom expanded significantly. Euthydemus I defended the kingdom against the Seleucid king Antiochus III, securing its autonomy. His son, Demetrius I, further expanded the territory into India, establishing the Indo-Greek kingdom, which will be discussed further on this iceberg. This expansion facilitated a unique cultural synthesis of Greek, Persian, and Indian elements, notably seen in art, especially sculptures, which are heavily influenced by Greek craftsmanship and know-how. The decline of the Greco-Bactrian Kingdom began with its fragmentation due to internal strife and external pressures. The Parthian Empire's invasion around 150 BC significantly weakened the kingdom, resulting in the loss of western territories. This was followed by invasions from nomadic tribes such as the Yuezhi, who ultimately overran Bactria. By 130 BC, the Greco-Bactrian Kingdom had collapsed, though the Indo-Greek kingdom south of the Hindu Kush persisted for another century, before succumbing to nomadic invaders. The Sabines. The Sabines were an ancient Italic people who lived in the central Apennine Mountains of the Italian peninsula, particularly in the region known as Sabina. Their history is intricately linked with that of early Rome. The Sabines were divided into two main groups after the founding of Rome. One group integrated with the Romans, and another that remained in the mountains, maintaining a distinct tribal state until its eventual assimilation into the Roman Republic. The Sabines played a significant role in the early history of Rome. According to legend, one of the most notable interactions between the Sabines and the Romans was the event now often known as the abduction of the Sabine women. This event occurred when the early Romans, lacking women, abducted Sabine women during a festival. This led to a series of conflicts, culminating in a peace agreement where the Sabines and Romans united, with Sabine king Titus Tatius co-ruling with Romulus, Rome's founder. The Sabines' influence on Rome continued with the reign of Numa Pompilius, Rome's second king, who was of Sabine origin. His reign is noted for establishing many of Rome's religious and cultural institutions, some of which are traditionally said to be Sabine in nature. Throughout the early Republic, the Sabines were frequently in conflict with Rome. Notable wars occurred in the early 5th century BC, where the Sabines attacked Roman territory multiple times, but were eventually subdued. The final downfall of the Sabine civilization came during the Roman Republic's expansionist period. The Roman consul Manius Curius Dentatus led the conquest, subduing the Sabines and confiscating their lands for Roman settlers around 290 BC. This conquest effectively ended Sabine independence as their territories were annexed, and the Sabines were granted Roman citizenship, initially without voting rights, but later with full rights. Despite the fall of the Sabine civilization, the Sabines were eventually fully integrated into Roman civilization, with numerous families tracing their ancestry to these later Sabines. Notably, given that the Romans believed themselves to be the descendants of early Roman men and Sabine women, this ancestry was well accepted within Roman society, much more than other Italic peoples. The Incans. The Incan civilization, known for its remarkable achievements in architecture, agriculture, and governance, was one of the most significant pre-Columbian civilizations in the Americas. Originating in the Andean region, the Inca Empire became the largest empire in pre-Columbian America by the early 16th century, spanning modern-day Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, Argentina, Chile, and Colombia. The Incas trace their origins to the Kingdom of Cusco, established around the 13th century. The transformation from a small city-state into a vast empire began under the leadership of Pachacuti Inca Yupanqui in the 15th century. Pachacuti and his successors expanded the empire through a combination of military conquest and peaceful assimilation. They integrated various cultures and regions into their sophisticated administrative system. The empire was divided into 4 districts, each governed by local leaders under the central authority of the Sapa Inca, who was considered a living god and the son of the sun. Inca society was highly organized and hierarchical. The Sapa Inca was at the top, followed by a nobility that included priests and military leaders. The common people were organized into kin groups, which formed the backbone of the labor system. The economy was based on agriculture, with innovative techniques such as terrace farming and irrigation, allowing the Incas to cultivate crops in the challenging Andean environment. The Incan economy also relied heavily on a labor system known as mita, which required citizens to work on various state projects in exchange for access to land and resources. And on a related note, the Incas were renowned for their engineering and architectural prowess. They built extensive road networks, known as the Capac Nan, which facilitated communication and transportation across the vast empire. These roads connected key administrative and religious centers, including the capital, Cusco, and the iconic citadel of Machu Picchu. Inca architecture is characterized by its finely crafted stonework, with structures designed to withstand earthquakes. Additionally, the Incas developed an impressive record-keeping system using knotted strings used to track resources and administrative detail. Religion played a central role in Inca society. The Incas worshipped a pantheon of gods, with Inti, the sun god, being the most important. Religious practices included elaborate ceremonies, offerings, and the construction of grand temples, such as the Coricancha in Cusco. The Incas also integrated the religious beliefs of conquered peoples, allowing for a syncretic religious environment, so long as there were no direct conflicts between beliefs. The downfall of the Inca Empire was precipitated by a combination of internal strife and external conquest. In the early 16th century, the empire was weakened by a civil war between the brothers Huascar and Atahualpa, following the death of their father, Huayna Capac. This conflict left the empire vulnerable to external threats. In 1532, Spanish conquistadors led by Francisco Pizarro arrived in the region. Taking advantage of the internal divisions and employing superior military technology, the Spanish captured Atahualpa during the Battle of Cajamarca. Despite a ransom being paid for his release, Atahualpa was slain, leading to further chaos and the eventual fall of Cusco in 1533. Notably, while the conquest had generally been portrayed as a small group of Spaniards conquering a vast empire by themselves, various local conquered peoples joined forces with the Spanish. The Spanish conquest, combined with the spread of European diseases such as smallpox, decimated the Incan population and disrupted their societal structures. By 1572, the last Inca stronghold was conquered, and the Spanish established the Viceroyalty of Peru, marking the end of the Inca Empire and the beginning of a new colonial era in South America. The history of the Trojan civilization centers around the ancient city of Troy, located in present-day Hisarlik, Turkey. The earliest settlements in Troy date back to around 3600 BC, with the city evolving into a small fortified urban center by 3000 BC. Troy's history is marked by a series of destructions and rebuildings, resulting in 9 archaeological layers, each representing different phases of its habitation. The Trojans were an Anatolian people with close cultural ties to other Anatolian peoples. Their strategic location near the Dardanelles Strait made Troy a significant trade and military hub. During the Late Bronze Age, Troy, known as Wilusa in Hittite texts, was a vassal state of the Hittite Empire, suggesting it was an influential city-state involved in regional politics. The most famous aspect of Trojan history is the Trojan War, a legendary conflict between the Achaean Greeks and the city of Troy. According to Greek mythology, the war was sparked by Paris of Troy abducting Helen, wife of Menelaus, king of Sparta. This event is immortalized in Homer's epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, although the historicity of the war remains debated among scholars. The war is traditionally dated to the 12th or 13th century BC, with many believing it represents a series of conflicts rather than a single event. Archaeological evidence supports the existence of a significant settlement at Hisarlik, with layers indicating destructions that align with the timeline of the Trojan War. Troy 7 in particular shows signs of a violent end, possibly correlating with the war described by Homer. This layer, dated to around the 12th century BC, reveals a city that was well fortified and densely populated, fitting the profile of the besieged Troy. The downfall of Troy marked the end of its prominence in the region. Post-destruction, the site saw periods of reoccupation during Greek and Roman times. However, the inhabitants were Greeks rather than Trojans. Modern excavations, beginning with Heinrich Schliemann in the 19th century, have brought to light many details about its extensive history. However, the exact relationship between myth and reality continues to be a subject of scholarly investigation. Remember to like and subscribe and check out the Patreon to support the channel further. Also check out my main channel, Lazy Chill Zone, where I discuss unsolved mysteries. I've attached the link to that channel in the comments.